nation. Together we stand, we head in one direction. We reach for the sun, we got so much possessions. If we understand, we need to come together. Together and move, together on the move. Together on the move.
On this episode,
the provisions on citizenship concern Kenyans. So the idea about, say, dual citizenship, it is a right that has been given to Kenyans under this constitution to acquire the citizenship of other countries. It does not affect how persons who are citizens of other countries, whether or not they can retain their citizenship when they become Kenyans.
There are some elements in the government who are not interested in civic education at all. They are not interested in a knowledgeable citizenry because you will not elect them back when you realize your rights.
this is Together on the Move. And now, our host.
Hey! Oh, this is fantastic. Thank you so much for coming here today. This is another edition of Together on the Move. And as we have been doing in the last 4 weeks, we want to talk about the Constitution in much more details than we did before we promulgated it. This is because we've realized that there's a gap and that we must educate Kenyans, we must give our civic education to Kenyans, because Kenyans cannot implement this Constitution if they don't fully understand it and engage individually with it. Our show today is going to talk about citizenship. The issue of citizenship is very critical to all of us. We are Kenyans, but there are many people who have been alienated in the previous constitution for various reasons that we are going to get to know about today, and then we are going to be able to support this aspect so that we can fully ensure that it is realized. We want to talk about this and much, much more. But now, please, let's put our hands together for our next guest, Mr. George Kigoro. Come on in, George. Karibu, karibu.
Thank you so much.
Come in, come in. First, you probably want to begin by telling us who you are and who you work for.
My name is George Kegoro. I'm the executive director of the Kenyan section of the International Commission of Jurists. We call ourselves ICJ-Kenya in short.
Okay. What are the mandates of the ICJ?
We support the rule of law, human rights, and democracy. We work in Kenya, we work in the rest of Africa, because the ICJ-Kenya is the only national section of ICJ in Africa. So we work within Kenya, but we also have a regional program that works in other countries in Africa.
Okay, so the rule of law, the Constitution must be a very exciting topic for you.
Yes, the Constitution is an important subject for us, and we've been involved very, very integrally at all stages in its enactment. I would need to say this also, that historically, ICJ-Kenya, together with the Law Society and NCCK, in 1994, when this country there was no agreement whether or not constitutional reforms are necessary. We wrote the first model constitution way back in 1994 with a view to demonstrating that constitutional reforms are necessary, and if they were undertaken, the kind of constitution that we could come up with might look like this. Yes.
And of course, it took a long time, and 1994 up to now, a much longer time for us to get it, but we all know the reasons why.
Yes.
Tell us, everybody says it's a wonderful constitution. We believe so too. Could you tell us in your own words, why do you think this is a wonderful constitution?
It's got massive gains for the people of Kenya, especially the women. It has special recognition for women representation in parliament. That is a massive gain for women. For us at ICJ-Kenya, who also support freedom of information, it has got a strong platform for access to information, Article 35 of the new constitution. It finally brings about a separation between Parliament and the executive, and therefore enabling Parliament to have the independence and self-control and that we've always craved. It therefore implicitly also checks on the power of the president very significantly.
Something we needed terribly for a long time.
Something that we needed for the country.
Yeah.
It mandates judicial reforms by, for example, providing for the retirement of the serving Chief Justice and for the vetting of judges with a view to determining their suitability to serve under the new constitution. It has a set of principles on the basis of which these are constitutional principles that are supposed to be the beacon for enforcement of the constitution, because not everything that is constitutional can be written. So when we've got disputes, when we've got how are we to be guided in the enforcement of the constitution? It is by reference to those principles. So all those for me are gains,
isn't it?
Yes,
they are absolute gains. Particularly, I'm interested in our show discussion topic of today is the issue of citizenship. What exactly do you think was the historical background or the spirit that caused for this to be explicitly expressed in the Constitution as it stands right now? And you might want to just run us through one or two aspects of it.
I think the provisions on citizenship are an extension of the standpoint that the Constitution has taken generally of equality between the two genders, men and women. The Constitution outlaws discrimination on the basis of gender, among other grounds, including with regard to citizenship issues. So there are strong, there's a strong movement from the previously discriminatory provisions in the Constitution with regard to women. For example, women could not pass on, confer citizenship. Well, that has been changed. Then the other standpoint around that is a liberalization of Kenyans acquiring the citizenship of other countries. So those are the two important themes around citizenship in the Constitution.
I just want to know, what is so important about a woman conferring citizenship to her husband? What is so critical? Why does it become a constitutional issue? Educate me.
Because a man or a husband can confer citizenship on or can qualify a woman or wife to be a citizen. And if you are going to have a family, then not being forced apart because they can't live in a country because citizenship is restricted. The importance is it keeps the family together.
Okay.
If a man can confer citizenship but a woman can't, and the family desires to live in Kenya, the option would be for the family to be sundered or for the family to move to another country where they've got a more liberal approach to who can confer citizenship.
Exactly. And we saw the situation where a lot of our athletes had to completely give up their citizenship. What does that do to us as a people and also the economy of our country, if you would?
Yes, there was that poor guy called Musheru who became Muja when he moved to another country. I think Bahrain, to run in Bahrain. So he Arabized and changed names, and so when he returned to this country, he was told, you can't just walk in the way you used to previously.
You need a visa now.
You need a visa. You're not a Kenyan. So he was put on the next flight, I think, back to wherever he had come from. So the point is people who, because of career reasons, whether it's athletes or top-notch scientists, find it advantageous to acquire the citizenship of other countries, do not now have to lose their Kenya citizenship. So the difficult choices people have to make or had to make under the previous constitution, they don't now have to make those choices. You don't have to lose your Kenya citizenship merely because you're pursuing that of another country.
Yes, exactly. And that is because we want Kenyans to take full advantage of what there is in their country. For example, you know, today a lady is married to a foreign person. Of course, she can confer. The challenge of not conferring before was denying the country what, for example?
If you were not conferring citizenship before, is then you lose your best people, because the best people tend to be internationally attractive.
Yes.
So the moment you get displaced, whether you are a top, I mean, the reasons why you've got Kenyans running for Denmark, it's the best Kenyans running for Denmark. It is not the worst athletes in Kenya who end up being desired by
nobody
Denmark.
would desire them out there, isn't
exactly.
it?
They're not
Yes.
competitive.
So the brain drain.
There's a brain drain, there's a talent drain.
And that's terrible.
Of course.
I was following a forum in which the people who are very happy about this dual citizenship, the possibility of dual citizenship, but there's a kikwazo somewhere. They can't take certain political offices, and they had an issue with that because I think they can't be elected. They can't hold elective posts.
That's true.
Yes. So how do we deal with that? Because the issue was, if I can't come and be elected, so what's the problem? And it's a big, it went on for a long time. How can we tell them that perhaps there's much more better things to think about than only that?
I think the right to live here is already an important inroad. I mean, even in the United States and most other countries, to be elected to president, you've got to be a citizen by birth. So you've had these huge controversies in some parts of Africa, especially where some people rise up in politics, and then it is said they are actually not citizens by birth. They were born in the neighboring country.
Yes.
You've had that with Kaunda.
Yes.
You've had that, I think, with Ouattara in West Africa, Ivory Coast. So you've had those controversies also in Malawi because of fluid arrangements about people moving up and
Across
down
the
and so on
border.
and so forth.
Yes.
But in principle, I think it is not unreasonable to say that people born in this country should ascend to the highest office in the land.
Elective offices, yes.
That's that's what I would think, and it accords with what exists elsewhere around the world.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a really big thing, and you know, somebody even went further and said, "I won't even invest in there." And I think it's very important that we reach out to them in the way that you have helped us do so in this show. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe right now there are questions coming in from the audience. If you would, please. Yes, sir, in a dark jacket.
Good afternoon. My name is Albert. My question is mainly on the reasons why the previous constitution was so punitive as concerns the dual citizenship. For example, having done the pros and cons, we see obviously there are a lot of pros as concerns getting dual citizenship. Other than the long-standing issue of patriotism as to the reason why we maintain one citizenship, what other reasons, because I think it's important we understand the reasons why then there wasn't dual citizenship and who was fighting that exactly, and the reasons why they were fighting that particular change. As far as we have it now, I would like us to know why exactly it was being blocked, so that as we go forward, it's better to understand the problem so that we are better equipped to tackle them.
Fantastic. Yes, I think there's another question coming there. Yes, right there,
Good afternoon, everyone. My question goes to the issue of age bracket. The Constitution says that if a child is found within the borders of Kenya at the age of, I think, 18 and below, they assume that he or she is a Kenyan citizen. Who came up with the age bracket and why 8 and below?
A good one there. Yes, there's a yes, sir, if you would.
Okay, I'm called Boniface, and my question is to the guest today. How does the Constitution going to ensure that Kenya is not going to become the hiding place for criminals? Because like the
hiding place for criminals because of this. Yeah.
How does the Constitution going to defend us so that the country does not become an hiding place for the criminals, like the two brothers case?
There are pedophiles all over the place that sometimes run away in some back country or something like that. Thank you for that. If we could come back to the panel, George, if you would.
Okay, I think let me answer the questions in the
order in which
they were asked.
Yes.
Why did the country resist dual citizenship previously? Because of control. If we've had a grinding dictatorship in this country for a very long time, one-party state for a very large part of the history of independent Kenya.
Yes.
It helps dictators when all the people they control are in their country, and anybody who is part of, who has rights in Kenya.
I never even looked at it
Yes,
that way.
obviously.
Awesome.
If you have got a U.S. citizenship,
Yes.
which means you've got options, you can live here or you can live in the U.S. for
Yes.
example. It means that if you oppose the dictatorship that we've had in the past,
Yes.
and it becomes too hot for you,
Yeah.
then you can leave.
Yeah.
But if you've got only Kenya citizenship, it means you've got to be careful, because if you left, you would only live as a refugee.
Yeah, or
You
in some dark dangers.
Yeah,
of-
exactly.
yeah.
You've got no rights
Yes.
beyond what you're able to exercise here in Kenya.
Yes.
So dual citizenship was resisted largely because of the desire by the political leadership over the years to control all Kenyans. Otherwise, if it becomes too hot for you here, you ship out and change citizenship,
And you stay there.
and then you stay there, and you are not qualified to comment on Kenya because you are a
Anything.
foreigner
Oh,
now.
no, that's terrible.
I think so.
Yes.
And
yes.
The other point I think is got to do with you've got to consider what happened in 1963. Kenya was the one of only 3 settler colonies for the British in Africa. The other 2 were Zimbabwe and South Africa. So Uganda, which was a colony of the British, was not a settler colony. And that there is a huge difference between a colony and a settler colony.
Absolutely.
That means that the British came and lived here,
Yeah.
and they didn't live in Uganda because Uganda was not a settler colony.
Yes.
Now, so at independence, you've got this discussion about how do you do citizenship arrangements. So British nationals who had settled in Kenya, whether they had come from England or whether they're British nationals who had come from India to build the railway and so on and
Yes.
so forth, then at 1963, they've got to decide what their citizenship is going
Yes.
to be. So their citizenship
Wow.
issues are accentuated in
Yes.
Kenya, especially because of the history of the country as
history
a
of our
settler
colonial
colony.
history. You are really giving me a lot of interesting historical background. I want us to continue and also take on the third question, but we do that right after this break, ladies and gentlemen. See you in a little while.
Together on the move. Together on the move. Together on the move.
This section provides opportunity for further discussions that will be raised in the episode.
Together on the move.
Please get your pen and paper ready to write down details to be presented later on in the program.
Together on the move. We're coming from a nation. Together we stand. We're heading one direction. We reach for the sun. We got so much possessions. If we'd understand, we need to come together. Together and move. Let us put an end to all that brings us down. All the violence and corruption, and break each other's heart. Together on the move. Together on the move. Together.
For more information about the Gender and Governance Program, visit www.gendergovernancekenya.org. The Gender and Governance Program, GGP, Usawa ni Haki.